in my personal experience, I've been writing and engaging in literacy since an incredibly young age. I was always read to as a kid, and I learned to read quickly, and I've always loved books, and I've had a long time love of writing that goes alongside with those books. Deborah Brandt discusses the idea of literacy sponsors. She says that sponsors, as I have come to think of them, are any agents, local or distant, concrete or abstract, who enable, support, teach, model, as well as recruit, regulate, suppress, or withhold literacy. I think that I've engaged with both sides of those literacy sponsor spectrums. I have had positive literacy sponsors who have helped me foster my own creative writing skills, my own writing not dictated by academic skills, and I've also had negative literacy sponsors who have hindered my growth as a writer, who have hindered my growth as a reader, who have defined me by very tight academic terms. And I believe that both of those have had a severe impact on my writing in both negative and positive ways. So today I'm going to read something from me that I wrote in 2009. I would have been 8. This was written the day before my birthday. So, a dog that lived underwater, and somehow it never needed food or water. All it needed was air, and somehow it had air all the time. It was the time of the dinosaurs, and all the dinosaurs. So he never came out of the water. And you know who told me this? Well, no one, because I am that dog. And I am 100 years old. But I will live a lot longer than that, because I am a dog. And us dogs live a pretty long time, and that is cool. But I can't talk now, because a dinosaur is coming to drink the water. I think I will die. Actually, I won't, because they do this all the time, so I know I won't die. So something I find very interesting about this piece specifically is the way that I kind of write all over the page. I drew a little water spout with bubbles in my drawing, and it's a very creative writing. I mean, I'm writing from the perspective of a dog who lives underwater in the time of the dinosaurs. But this really shows that at that age, I had a very creative sense of writing that wasn't hindered by things like writing in the lines or spelling or punctuation or maybe even just knowledge or making something that was practical, because practically a dog can't live underwater. It needs more than air. It needs food. But I wrote creatively because that was the story that was in my mind. And the specific literacy sponsor who taught me to write like that, her name was Emily McGee. She was my first grade teacher. And she taught us to just write what we thought. We were not hindered. She was not grading us on our grammar. She was not really grading us on those at all. They were creative projects that she encouraged us to do to encourage our writing skills. And the way that she encouraged that writing without hindering us with grammar or making sure that the stories made sense or they followed the plot, mountain or whatever, she allowed us to grow as literate people without those hindrances. So she was a positive literacy sponsor in my life. Unfortunately, on the opposite side of the spectrum, I very quickly had to learn how to write the proper way, the academic way, the right way. I had to learn how to write with proper grammar, with proper, spelling and punctuation and all those things that are considered necessary to have good writing. In 6th grade, I had a teacher, and her name was Mrs. Warren, and she was part of the Spectrum program at Oakland Middle School, which is just the gifted kid program. And she made me feel like hot, melted garbage about my English skills, my literacy skills, my writing skills. She would give tests on grammar, and I would fail them because I have never been very good at grammar. And she would just make me feel awful about my skills and about my understanding and my ability to understand and create and write for myself. She was the perfect example of a literacy sponsor because she hindered my writing. She also, coincidentally, was the one who first taught me how to write in the MLA format. And she hammered on that MLA format. She did not let us write anything else. She would take lots of points off if you messed up your margins, and she wouldn't even look at the content of my writing. So I learned at that age to force my ideas through academic language with proper grammar, proper spelling, proper punctuation, I learned how to put my ideas down on the paper only in an academic form. And ever since then, I've struggled to write in anything except a sort of academic, proper grammar, well-written, quote-unquote, sort of way. So I today also have, this is an essay that I wrote last semester for a children's literacy class. It was the first research paper I ever wrote, actually, which is sort of interesting that I made it this far without writing one. But it had to be at least 8 pages long. It had to be, in perfect, proper MLA format. And this professor, I won't name names just for the sake of not naming names, but this professor would hammer on our grammar. She did not care about the ideas or the content of our piece at all. She only cared about the grammar. So by the time, over the course of the class, we had to work on communicating our ideas in that proper grammatical format in order for them to even be considered in the forum of the class. So by the time we hit the end of the semester in these written papers, all of us were very, very concerned with making sure our ideas were communicated in the proper academic format so that they could even be considered. I remember this specific essay, I was so scared I was going to make some sort of grammar mistake and she was going to tank my grade, and it wasn't even going to matter that I had done all this research for this paper. But when we got our grades back, all she cared about was the content, which was interesting because that wasn't what she had done in the class. And it shows just the disparity in sponsors and how they can limit you in what you write, how they can limit your writing in the ways that you communicate it. So I'm just going to read the final paragraph of this piece. This is a research paper on the symbols of Christianity in Brian Jacques' work. Jacques makes it clear in every one of his books that in the struggle between good and evil, good will always triumph. As heroic children's fantasy stories, this is not surprising, but the perseverance of good and those with good intentions and actions is a hallmark of Christian values and Christian faith. The Christian belief is that God is in every action, decision, every thought and movement, and that He is good. If the belief is that every action is fulfilled in His will, then it is true that every outcome is a good outcome, no matter the tragedy it has taken to get there. That is true in Jacques' book, even war and death find a prosperous and happy return to life as it once was. To try and remove Christianity when the story is so entrenched in it would be like trying to ignore the main character of the book as important to the plot. Pointless and impossible. Castaways of the Flying Dutchman, Redwall, and Matameo are all inarguably Christian novels with a strong basis in biblical stories, Christian theory, and religious values. These aspects represent an integral part of each story that would be left bereft without them. Each aspect, whether historical, moral, or ideological, is a building block of the story as a whole, enriched with Jacques' personality. This story is changed irrevocably for the better for it, as these great tales would not be what they are without it. Now, I made a 95 on this paper, which I was very, very proud of. But it is true that without the specific sponsors I had along my path who taught me to write in the proper academic form, I never could have gotten that 95. So even while those sponsors had a negative impact on me, they also had a positive impact by teaching me to write in the way that is desired in these college forums that I was planning to go forward into and that I am now in. So the range of sponsors can affect your growth in positive and negative ways, and sometimes in both ways. Yeah. Thank you.